Elite Facts presents
8 biggest draws in UFC history. 8. UFC 114, Rampage Jackson vs. Rashad Evans. So Rampage Jackson is a pretty damn good fighter, no matter how you look at it. Sure, he's had a few bouts that weren't all that great, but as of the publishing of this video, Rampage Jackson has an impressive record of 37 wins and 11 losses throughout his 17-year professional career. Making his name in Pride FC, Rampage eventually made his way to the UFC, winning 5 out of his first 6 fights in the company. This put Rampage in line for a light heavyweight championship opportunity. Unfortunately for Rampage, however, he suffered an injury, causing him to miss out on his title match with Rashad Evans in UFC 96, and allowing Keith Jardine to take his place in the title match and take the championship away from Evans. This left both Rampage Jackson and Rashad Evans to fight without a championship title on the line. That being said, however, a lot of people were still interested in the bout, as the buy rate was a massive $1,050,000, and the event earned around $3.8 million in revenue.
7.
UFC 193, Rousey vs. Holm. Without a doubt, the biggest upset on this list. Before UFC 193, Ronda Rousey was essentially untouchable. She pretty much ruled the entire bantamweight division for 4 years. She dominated in Strikeforce and was the inaugural UFC bantamweight champion following the purchase of Strikeforce MMA. Following a 4-year undefeated streak, she finally met her match when she defended her championship against kickboxing veteran Holly Holm. The bout ended early in the second round as Rousey was knocked out with a brutal head kick, followed by a flurry of ground punches, thus crowning a new bantamweight champion. The pre-main event featured a strawweight bout between champion Joanna Djordjevic and Valerie Letourneau. The event itself earned around $6.8 million and had a buy rate of $1.1 million.
6.
UFC 116, Lesnar vs. Carwin. UFC 116 featured the second title defense of the man who is essentially all muscle and no neck, Brock Lesnar, as he defended his championship against the interim UFC heavyweight champion Shane Carwin. The bout itself earned submission of the night, as Lesnar was able to lock Carwin in a triangle choke submission in the second round. Other bouts included Chris Leben versus Yoshishiro Akiyama in a middleweight bout, Chris Lyle versus Matt Brown in a welterweight bout, and Stephen Bonner versus Krzysztof Szyszki in a lightweight bout. The event earned roughly $2 million in revenue, which at the time was impressive for UFC, and had a staggering buy rate of $1.16 million. That's just crazy.
5.
UFC 200, Tate vs. Nunes. Although the original 2 main event bout may have been what made up the $1.2 million box office purchases, UFC 200 was an event that was built up to be the biggest event in UFC history. This event, however, was pretty much cursed from the get-go, as Conor McGregor dropped out of the main event after failing to fulfill media obligations related to the fight, not to mention faking his own retirement, which didn't help the situation at all. With McGregor and Diaz off of the card, the pre-main event of John Jones versus Daniel Cormier battling for the light heavyweight championship was made the main event, a fight that had been sought after since their first encounter way back in UFC 182 in 2015. Well, this main event was then canceled due to John Jones failing a PED, that's a performance-enhancing drug, test. Now, with 2 of the biggest attractions of the event gone, the main event was then made to be Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes for the Bantamweight Championship, which would be Tate's first defense since winning the title at UFC 196 in an impressive victory over Holly Holm. The pre-main event was also something that turned heads, as it featured the return of former UFC heavyweight champion and a man who beat up a shark at one point, Brock Lesnar, as he was set to fight for the first time in 4 years against industry veteran Mark Hunt. With all of the issues the event had, it still managed to be a success.
4.
UFC 194, Aldo vs. McGregor. What had been destined to be an incredible fight turned out to be a 13-second fly swatting from McGregor, as he was able to capture his first championship in UFC. Much respect to Jose Aldo and what he's done in the UFC, but this fight utterly shocked the world. The event itself generated 1.2 million buys and generated around $10.1 million in revenue.
3,
UFC 196, Diaz vs. McGregor. UFC 196 didn't go as planned, but still turned out to be a fantastic event. The main event that was originally scheduled was between UFC featherweight champion Conor McGregor, who was hot off the heels of the previously mentioned victory over Jose Aldo in a record 13 seconds, and the then current UFC lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos. What made this main event a big deal was the fact that Conor McGregor could have potentially become the first fighter to hold 2 belts from 2 different weight divisions at the same time. However, Rafael pulled out of the fight due to a foot injury, thus putting McGregor's lightweight title fight on hold. However, as a replacement, Nate Diaz stepped up to fight McGregor with only 11 days' notice before the fight. This would require McGregor to gain an additional 15 pounds in order to meet welterweight criteria. The fight ended in the second round with McGregor submitting to a rear naked choke. The event also featured the current UFC bantamweight champion at the time, Holm, defending her championship for the first time since winning the title from Ronda Rousey back at UFC 193. It was against former Strikeforce bantamweight champion Miesha Tate. The event itself earned a staggering $8.1 million and had a buy rate of over 1.6 million.
2,
UFC 100, Mir vs. Lesnar. Rematches are always interesting to watch, especially when it's between a then prominent UFC fighter, Frank Mir, and the then world champion and certified shaved gorilla, Brock Lesnar. Their first encounter was Lesnar's debut and ended in the first round after 1 minute and 36 seconds as Frank Mir trapped Lesnar in a knee bar submission hold. Although Lesnar was able to get in a few good and significant strikes and takedowns, it was a very impressive victory on Mir's part. Now, you'd think their second encounter would end the same way, right? Well, wrong. Lesnar pretty much annihilated Mir and won the bout by TKO in the second round. The undercard also featured the likes of Georges St-Pierre defending his welterweight championship against Thiago Alves, as well as Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping in their first encounter with each other. They're scheduled to fight at UFC 204 for the middleweight championship.
1,
UFC 202, McGregor vs. Diaz 2. King Mac is back and has taken the throne as possibly the biggest draw in UFC history. Now, although McGregor won the rematch by majority decision, Diaz certainly gave McGregor a run for his money. Most people who watched this event believe that the fight itself was 50-50, as McGregor was able to get more significant strikes while Diaz was able to throw an impressive flurry of strikes on McGregor towards the end of the second round, as well as the impressive takedown by Diaz towards the end of the fight. Regardless of the outcome, the fight was incredible and lived up to the hype. The event itself managed to draw in an impressive $7.6 million, which granted isn't the largest amount earned in a single event by UFC, but a massive 1.65 million people were slated to have watched the event, making it the largest UFC event yet.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.